Hey everybody, Coach Marie Nicole here. I wanted to come on today and I wanted to tell you, or I wanted to discuss with you my notes from church this past weekend. And for those of you who might not know, we are in a sermon series called Impact, the Power of a Significant Life. And this weekend we discussed the topic of why do we need a team? And the sermon was based on one of my favorite passages from the Bible. It was Mark 2, 1 through 12. And it says this: A few days later, when Jesus again entered Capernaum, the people heard he had come home. They gathered in such large numbers that there was no room left, not even outside the door. And he preached the word to them. Some men came bringing a paralyzed man, carried by four of them. Since they could not get him to Jesus because of the crowd, they made an opening in the roof above Jesus by digging through it, and then lowered the mat the man was lying on. When Jesus saw their faith, he's talking about the friends here. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralyzed man, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Now some of the teachers of the law were sitting there, thinking to themselves, "Why does this fellow talk like that? He's blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone?" Immediately, Jesus knew in his spirit that this is what they were thinking in their hearts, and said to them, "Why are you thinking these things? What is easier to say to this paralyzed man, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Get up, take your mat, and walk'? But I want you to know the Son of Man," he's talking about himself, of course, here, "but I want you to know the Son of Man has the authority on earth to forgive sins." So he said to the man, "I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home." He got up, took his mat, and walked out in full view of all of them. This amazed everyone, and they praised God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this before." Okay, so in that we learn that, number one, we were created for community. And number two, only in community will we find and fulfill the purpose for which we were created. So we can believe that we were created for certain things. We might have a certain niche that we love to use our creativity in, but only in community can we actually find our gifts and use our gifts to their full ability. And the bottom line of this sermon, and keep in mind that it's not over yet, the bottom line of this sermon is Christian community is the primary instrument through which God is fulfilling his purpose in the world. So anything that we do within our Christian community, whether it be serving, whether it be singing, whether it be hospitality, which is also, everything is a type of serving, but we have different service projects, if you will, at different times in our lives and at different times in the week. We can't teach without having someone to teach. We can't open up our homes to people if we have no community to open it up to. So we need community in order to function. And after I read the 3 truths about about Christian community, I will read to you our memory verse. Truth number 1 about Christian community is sometimes we need to be carried, and then sometimes we are the ones on the stretcher. That's what this says. Sometimes we are the ones on the stretcher, and sometimes we are the ones carrying the stretcher. So in order to be in a Christian community, we need to both open ourselves up to being prayed for and to being cared for by others within our community, and we need to open ourselves up and make ourselves available to be the person who carries other people to Christ in their time of need. And Christian community, number 2, is not just about me. We might think in certain times in our lives that, oh, I'm good with Jesus. I don't really need to go to Bible study, or I don't really need to go to core group or life group or whatever you may call it. But it's not just all about us. We might be that person that has that certain gift that people need to see or learn from. So God might want to place us in a certain group of people in order to benefit another person or another group of people. And number 3, the way we develop community is by looking for those who need to be carried. And not to say that everybody needs to be carried in the same way all the time, but everybody has a situation in their life where they need to be carried. And for those people who need to be carried, I will say this, that you should not be afraid to be open and say, hey, I'm struggling. Can you carry this burden in prayer? Or I'm struggling. I really don't want to talk about it right now, but I really need your help, and I need you to carry me to Jesus regarding this. And this doesn't have to be named. I'm not saying that at all. But you can't function and be healthy mentally and even physically when you're all on your own. So to those people who need to be carried, whether you are the ones that need to be carried now or you will need to be carried in the future, don't ever feel like you are going to be such a burden if you open up to somebody and tell them, hey, you know what, I'm struggling, I need help. And so that leads me to the memory verse, and it comes from Galatians 6, verse 2, and it says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. So that's what it's all about. We were created to carry the burdens of others. And I am so grateful that throughout my life, and even now for a lot of things, I have had people who I've had the privilege of carrying their burdens, and I have had the rest and the privilege of saying, you know what, I'm struggling with this, and having those burdens carried. That's why we need to find such a group of friends that we can lean on. And if we are Christians, our best friends should be Christians. And it's not to say that we can't make a friend with an unbeliever, but our true best friends should be the ones that are also living out their faith and can be the ones that dig down in the trenches with us in prayer and just go to battle with us. And so, you guys, I hope that you find those friends and that you treasure those friends, because friendship is valuable, and it's not only all about you. God might place somebody in your life, and I use this as an example the other day when I did this for my other social media. God might place somebody in your life that God's not hearing from them, like through prayer very often. So He might place you and your situation in their life in order for that person to hit their knees for you and begin to renew their healthy prayer life, their healthy discussion life with Christ. So I pray that you would just have a year of finding fulfilling Christ-centered relationships, and that you just feel your best and help others feel their best as well by lifting them up. I'll talk to you later. Have a great day. Bye-bye.